Chinese cars were long considered a joke, with poorly copied designs, awkward proportions, and dizzying visual gimmicks. As if an algorithm combined a German sport utility vehicle, a Kinder toy, and a Transformers episode. For years, China produced copies of European cars that looked as similar as Johnny Cadillac does to Johnny Hallyday, the Huracan. A Porsche would end up as a Zotier. A Land Rover was copied into a counterfeit Landwind, while Toyota's Corolla was remade by BYD without any shame. But the real problem is that it didn't stop there. Not only did they copy, but they copied badly. The proportions were distorted, details were added randomly, and the lines made it look like there were three designers who hated each other, forced to work on the same car. It was honestly ugly, but it was far from us. We looked at them contemptuously, thinking it's ugly but Chinese. By the way, if you clicked, it's because you think that too. And then, one day, something changed. Subtly, gradually, but today, it's very noticeable. You see a Chinese car with an appealing roofline, followed by a sport utility vehicle that looks well designed, making you reconsider your initial assumptions. One day, you notice a stylish sedan that catches your attention. You take a closer look at the brand, badge, and search for more information online. And you find out that for the first time, a Chinese car is actually decent. Of course, it's still far from perfect. While some unnecessary styling effects, features, and TikTok-compatible gadgets remain, the overall product is more polished. And the question we're asking is, why do the Chinese originally make such ugly cars, and what happened recently? Did they watch a tutorial on how to make a beautiful car on YouTube? Not at all. They did something much smarter. They stopped copying or coming up with their own terrible style, and they started buying ours. Many Chinese cars today are designed by former employees of European automakers like Audi, Citroën, Porsche, and Ferrari. Guys who worked on the most ambitious concept cars and who now design SUVs for brands you've never heard of. So, why was the style of Chinese cars so bad? How is it getting better? And who are the designers who switched sides? That's what we're going to explore together in this video. For years, and before arriving on our market, China made cars that looked like pirated versions of European models. I showed you famous ones like the Landwind Accept, a Range Rover Evoque copy, and the BYD F3, a Toyota Corolla knockoff. But those are just the headliners, the tip of the iceberg. Beneath that lay a parallel world of rough clones and dubious knockoffs. Like the Shuangguan CEO, which closely mimicked the BMW X5's design, with a nearly identical profile and rear lights. BMW filed a lawsuit against Chinese courts, but unsurprisingly never won their case. There was also the BJ80, copied from the Mercedes G-Class, but with picnic table plastics and crank windows. Today, it's a model used by the Chinese army. The Geely GE, a parody of the Rolls-Royce Phantom, features a massive grille, flashy wood trim, and a single armchair in the back for the owner instead of a bench seat. The JAC A6 is another gem, its name hinting at a clumsy attempt to recreate the Audi A6 with a grille and headlights barely inspired by the original. It was more than copying, it was nearly industrial cosplay. To grasp why these cars appear inexpensive to us, we must zoom out. Behind these clumsy clones lies an industry bustling with activity. Today, China has about 146 active car manufacturers. Yeah, 146. This surpasses the combined total of the European Union, United States, and Japan. Over there, it's not just an industry seeking identity, it's a nation rapidly reliving the entire automotive history. Imagine Europe in 1910 and 1920. Every city had its own automaker, and auto shows were a jungle of brands filled with pioneers, geniuses, eccentrics, copycats, and dreamers. Some lasted 6 months, and others became Peugeot, Renault, Citroën. What we're seeing in China today is exactly that, but on steroids, with billions of yuan injected every quarter. Brands are born and die every month, it's become the Wild West. Last year, the country produced over 30 million vehicles, triple the output of all of Europe combined. It sold nearly 23 million, half of which are electric. That's more than the United States, Japan, Africa, and South America combined. In short, it's no longer an emerging market. China is a young, fast-paced industrial empire that experiments, fails, tries again, buys, pivots, and restructures itself at an unprecedented speed. In this era of intense competition, survival relies on more than just technical innovation. To expand, you must make people dream, seduce them, and have charisma. This brings us back to the crucial matter of taste. Because if these cars seemed ugly to us, it wasn't just because of their poor quality, it was also, and above all, because they weren't made for us. In China, the car doesn't have the same symbolism as it does in Europe. For us, it's passionate, cultural, almost sentimental. Over there, it's a social totem, a trophy on wheels, a message to tell others, look at where I am in life. In a hierarchical society that values respect for elders and status, car design becomes a tool for social signaling. Take 3-box sedans. Here, they're gradually disappearing. Young people prefer compacts. In China, they remain the ultimate symbol of refinement, as they distinctly separate the driver from the rear passenger. The car belongs to the boss, the dignitary, the respected elder who matters and is honored. As a result, the interiors are designed for the rear passengers with motorized footrests, blackout curtains, retractable trays, and fragrance diffusers. Sometimes the back seat surpasses the driver's seat in luxury, which is unheard of in Europe, even in a Rolls-Royce. The exterior shares the same DNA. Subtlety is not an option. You must stand out, shine, and make an impression, even if it means being extravagant. The honky H9 is a luxury sedan used by the elites. The vehicle's grille is slightly exaggerated, resembling a fusion of a Maybach and a hotel lobby, or the Tremche GA8. The front end no longer resembles a face. The front is a large chrome sandwich. If possible, they would have simply made a grille on wheels. European brands like BMW have adapted, with the 7 Series G70 designed primarily for Chinese customers. Larger, grander, and more dramatic, with a rear cabin that feels first class, the iconic massive grille, and the small headlights that sparked conversations. At DS as well, there's the DS9 for example, which was designed almost exclusively for this market. Silhouette, limousine, little clock, intricate shapes, chrome everywhere. We're far from the typical driving pleasure, but that's exactly what was needed. Therein lies the misunderstanding. Until recently, Chinese design followed its own logic, distinct from Western design principles. In Europe, we have a more mature car culture. We prefer clear, sophisticated designs and don't mix styles together. We admire an Audi for precision, a BMW for dynamism, and an Alfa Romeo for sensuality. For a long time, Chinese brands couldn't enter our market because they were immature, maintained their own codes, and simply couldn't succeed. They eventually realized they needed to adapt to appeal globally. Then, they shifted strategy. They stopped copying and began recruiting. That's when the situation escalated. Because while ugliness can come from a misunderstood style, beauty, on the other hand, can be bought, and that's exactly what they did. Since the 2010s, the Chinese realized that copying designs wasn't sufficient to penetrate the European automotive market. In their quest for dominance, they began blatantly copying strategies. Eventually, pretending was insufficient. They needed to gain credibility. That's exactly what they did by poaching our best minds. For the past 10 years, Chinese design studios have gradually been filling up with major figures from European design. And not just second-rate people, right? The studio heads and designers who created the cars you drive, admire, and possibly set as your phone's wallpaper. Wolfgang Egger, the designer of the Audi A6, participated in the project. Gallardo, who is responsible for a part of Alfa Romeo's history, including the 8 C Competizione. Today, he works for BYD. Since 2016, he has been the one who designed the lines of the BYD Han, Seal, Dolphin, and Atto 3, in other words, the brand's flagship models. His role at BYD is crucial, establishing a believable, worldwide, and consistent aesthetic for the rapidly growing manufacturer's vehicles on our roads. Wolfgang didn't just add a splash of paint for BYD, he redefined the entire image of one of the world's largest electric car manufacturers, and he's not the only one doing so. At Schengen, another German giant has taken the lead in design. Klaus Bischoff, the father of the Golf 7 and 8, the man behind Volkswagen's ID lineup from the ID3 to the ID Buzz. He left in 2023 and now oversees the image of Schengen and its electric brands Avatar and Deepal. Basically, he's the guy who gave a face to Volkswagen Group's electric shift, and now he's doing the same thing but on the other side of the world. At NIO, it's an American who holds the pencils. Chris Thomason, formerly of BMW and Ford, he joined NIO in 2015 back when the brand was still called Next Ev. He designed the EP, 9 supercar, ET, 5 and ET, 7 sedans, and oversaw all design work at the Munich-based European Center. Alongside him are Raul Pires, ex-Bentley, and Adil Benouadi, ex-Aston Martin, who worked on the Vulcan. The manufacturer's ambition is evident in their decision to open a studio in Munich. They understand that to succeed in Europe and attract top talent, designing in Europe is crucial. At Geely, one of China's largest groups, Stefan Silaf is in charge of everything. The designer of the Audi A7 Sportback, Bentley Bentayga, and Mercedes CLS. Since 2021, he has led the group's global design, showcasing the exceptional talent present. At Guangzhou Automobile Group, Pontus Fontos, a Swede with experience at Renault, Volvo, Kia, and Faraday Future, heads the Los Angeles studios. Milan has a design center that doesn't produce any series yet, but is planning the brand's future. Led by Stéphane Janin, former head of concept car design at Renault, Dongfeng has chosen Henning Knopfler. Andrew Dyson, previously at Volvo Truck and Gretwell Motor, has been hired by Gretwell Motor. Dyson is a veteran who worked on the Volkswagen Touareg, the Chrysler Crossfire, the Saab 9.5, and the Opel Mokka from 2020. At First Automobile Works, Gilles Taylor, the man behind the Xantia and notably the 2017 Rolls-Royce Phantom, is in charge. He also designed the 2010 Jaguar XJ, so he's clearly not just an average intern. Sherry hired Sajdin Osmansevic, a Bosnian who previously worked at BMW, Ford, Skoda, and Great Wall. At Xpeng, Rafik Ferrag, a Frenchman who worked at Honda, Peugeot, and Citroën, took charge of exterior design and their flying car, Aeron. And at Li Auto, it's a former Porsche employee, Benjamin Baum, who designed the latest 911 Type 992 before moving to Beijing to work on electric SUVs, 7, 8, and 9. There you go, I'm not gonna go any further with this list. Did you get the idea? The world's design elite has largely shifted to the east. The key question is, why did they agree to this? There are several answers, but the most obvious one is resources. Let's not kid ourselves. China offers more attractive salaries and is the top destination for automotive industry investment with fewer constraints compared to Europe. Design, research and development, industrialization. Quite a few brands have budgets that no European studio has seen since the 90s. China offers a kind of creative freedom as everything still needs to be invented there. There's no sacred DNA to respect, no tradition to preserve, no fans to appease. You can dare anything and rethink everything if you want. And sport utility vehicle with a double curved windshield, a spiral-shaped light signature and a retractable steering wheel. Go. And finally, prestige. Yeah, prestige. Because some people think these brands will become global giants in the years to come. It's better to be present from the start and contribute to the commercial growth. In China, the chief designer is not only an executor, but also a celebrity. The Lego industry gives him power, builds a studio around him, and puts him in the spotlight, which is flattering and matters. That's it now? You get it? This is where we are. Chinese cars are no longer just caricatures, they're no longer ugly by default, and there are plenty of interesting things to say in terms of design. I find it good as it provides many topics to discuss, though not all of them. There's still some kitsch, weird and questionable content, sometimes even intentionally so. The days when they resembled unsuccessful imitations of German sedans are fading. Now, even if you're not an enthusiast, you can confidently admit it. Some are modern, others ambitious, and a few simply top-notch in exterior design. We didn't see it coming because we were looking elsewhere. We believed Westerners had non-transferable expertise in style, production, and technology. That car design was something reserved for the West and that our taste and beauty couldn't be bought? Spoiler alert. If China didn't try to impose or create its own car design culture, it imported ours with its best ambassadors. In just a few years, it compensated for a 30-year delay, primarily by offering significantly lower prices, which is increasingly important to many households. However, this doesn't signify its victory or Europe's defeat. Good design isn't merely about a good pencil, it's a vision, sensitivity, and cultural grounding. I believe European brands still possess that unique heritage and ability to create desire without excess. To design a car that suddenly becomes part of popular culture, which is why Chinese manufacturers seek them out. Not to copy, but to learn. Should this worry the European industry? Maybe, but not to the point of falling into paranoia. The European automotive industry's golden age has passed, with the center of gravity now shifted. In 2024, China produces 3 times more cars than all of Europe combined, and it can produce them much more cheaply. The company sells millions of EVs and invests in artificial intelligence batteries and immersive cockpits with a new focus on design. The real question is not if artificial intelligence will surpass us, but what we do now. Are our leaders fighting to preserve our expertise? Will we continue hindering our manufacturers with unrealistic regulations and excessive taxes? Or are we going to give our companies the chance to become competitive and desirable again? And you personally, where do you stand? I'm curious to discuss it in the comments. Would you be willing to buy a Chinese car? If yes, what attracts you? The price, the technology, the style, or what holds you back? Is it the fear of after-sales service, the brand image, patriotism, and above all, is there one that made you hesitate for the first time? The one that made you say, yeah, they've really got something here, because that's where it all begins. Not in the studios, not in the showrooms, but in the eyes of the public and the market who decide what deserves to survive. Choosing the car you drive is like voting for a type of industry, a type of design, a type of world, and that's where you come in. Friends, thank you for watching this video.